Hello, I'm Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science, Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, giving you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. It's currently the eve of October 24th, 2023 in the United States, the morning of October 25th, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the aftermath, the hostage situation. Israel is now confirming that there are 220 held Israelis in the Gaza Strip. These are people that have been kidnapped on October 7th and are held by the Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad movement. It is important to note that that number is not final. There are now reported over 100 Israelis that are still considered missing. These are either people who were kidnapped in the original attack and have not been identified yet, or people who were killed and have not been identified yet, or people who were killed and their bodies were hijacked possibly back to the Gaza Strip. In addition to that, in an interview today, one of the women who were released yesterday stated that after the violent kidnapping and that she was slightly beaten along the way during the kidnapping, once they arrived in the hideouts that Hamas had established for the kidnappers, they were treated relatively well. She stated that they were divided into separate groups. Each group had a medic and a doctor visited them every 3 days. They received medical attention, ate alongside their captors, and that they were even given the medicines that they used to get back in Israel, each one of them according to their medical needs, and that if they could not get that medicine, the doctors gave them different medicines that were appropriate to whatever they had. So that is the current report as far as we know about the hostage situation. Going on to some of the ongoing fighting going on in the Gaza Strip. There were continuous rockets and missiles that were fired today from Gaza to the south of the country, area surrounding Gaza, and the center of the country. There were attacks in the various different kibbutzim near Nahal Oz, surrounding the Gaza Strip, as well as missile attacks that went further north than they have in the last days in the center of Israel. So there were attacks today in Kfar Saba, Hulon, Rishon LeZion, and Bat Yam. In addition, there was an attempted sea infiltration today by Hamas attackers from the Gaza Strip trying to infiltrate Israel from the sea near the area of the kibbutz of Zikim. 4 attackers were killed after they emerged from a tunnel. In addition, the IDF reported today that in its retaliations in the Gaza Strip, there were 3 different assassinations, and one of these included the deputy commander of a unit that participated in the massacres in the village of Be'eri on October 7th. The village of Be'eri itself was very, very badly hit. Most of the village is either killed or captured, and one of the people killed in the Israeli retaliations in the last 24 hours includes the deputy commander of this division that attacked the kibbutz of Be'eri. In addition, the IDF continued its bombardments throughout the north and center and some attacks in the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. The UN reported today there are 1.4 million Palestinians that are internally displaced. In addition, the Palestinian Health Ministry reported that there are 5,791 people that have been killed. 700 of these have been killed in the last 24 hours. I remind everyone this follows reports from 2 days ago in which the IDF said that it was intensifying its bombing throughout the Gaza Strip. Turning to some of the humanitarian aid, following UN reports today that the humanitarian trucks that are supposed to go from Egypt into the Gaza Strip were held up. Eventually, the Palestinian Red Crescent reported that 8 out of the 20 trucks carrying food, water, and medical supplies were allowed in. UNRWA, which is the UN Refugee and Work Relief Agency that is tasked with helping the Palestinians, reported today that it will soon have to close down its activities in the Gaza Strip if it does not receive fuel. Remind everyone that as part of the negotiations for humanitarian aid, hospitals in the Gaza Strip are stating that they need fuel to run their generators. There's no electricity that's flowing to the Gaza Strip. Israel, in turn, has said it is not going to allow fuel in. It will just be stolen by Hamas. Relating to this, the Israeli chief of staff today stated that fuel will not be permitted to enter the Gaza Strip, and he stated that if hospitals in the Gaza Strip need fuel, they should demand that Hamas return the fuel that it stole from UNRWA. So this is relating to something that happened in the first days of the war, when UNRWA stated that a few people from different Hamas ministries stormed their compounds and stole their fuel. Israel stating will not allow fuel to come in because it will just be used by Hamas to send rockets and power their generators. Meanwhile, hospitals in the Gaza Strip are stating that they are about to collapse. Their generators cannot continue to operate, and without fuel coming in, the hospitals are going to shut down. White House spokesperson today stated that the U.S. is working on trying to get fuel into Gaza, but at the same time it understands Israel's concerns and is working with Israel on this. Moving on to some developments in the West Bank, the IDF has been clamping down on different areas in the West Bank, trying to hunt down Hamas operatives and leaders. During an IDF operation today in the town of Burstein and in the area surrounding the Jenin refugee camp, 3 Palestinians were killed in a drone attack following confrontations with the IDF. Turning to the north of Israel, the ongoing escalations between Israel and Hezbollah, what I call this game of chicken, with both sides waiting to see who is going to break first and launch the area into an all-out war. The French President Macron, who's visiting Israel today, gave an assessment that as far as France can see in its intelligence, Hezbollah is not interested in all-out war with Israel, but he also stated that France is sending urgent messages to Lebanon, stating that if Hezbollah does launch such a war, Lebanon will be the one to suffer the retaliation from Israel. So this is part of the pressure the international community is waging against the government of Lebanon in order to wage pressure against Hezbollah to not launch a war with Israel. Related to that, there were continuing rocket attacks from Lebanon into various parts of the north of Israel. There were rockets hitting the Galilee area and the area of Hardov. Israel targeted 3 different units that were trying to fire mortar fires and anti-tank missiles in Lebanon. In addition, Israel carried out a major retaliation against Hezbollah weapons warehouse in Hardov, and this was the 6th attack that the IDF carried out in that area within the last 24 hours. In addition, there were mortar fires today fired into the Golan Heights from Syria. So I remind everyone that Syria is trying also, like the government of Lebanon, desperately to not enter the war, under the assumption that Israeli retaliation in the area will absolutely decimate large parts of the country. It was reported already last week that Syria has alerted its different officers to make sure that no shots are accidentally fired towards Israel because Israel will retaliate, and that Syria is trying to retain the organizations down south. Today, mortar fires were fired into the Golan Heights from Syria, and there were at least 2 hits identified. The IDF responded with artillery to the launch sites, and later it was reported that the IDF attacked military infrastructure in Syria. On to some of the regional developments. After reporting the last several days that there have been attacks against U.S. bases, the Pentagon today announced that U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria have been attacked at least 13 times in the past week. In addition, the Lebanese El Miadin newspaper reported today that the Iraqi militia, called the Brigades of the Promise, this is one of the militias in Iraq that is loyal to Iran, stated, in addition to targeting U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria, that it will not only target these areas if the U.S. enters the war, but that, and I'm quoting, it also sees U.S. bases in Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates as legitimate targets. So this is part of the ongoing regional escalations. Moving on to some of the political developments that occurred. In a special session of the UN Security Council, UN Secretary General Guterres stated today that while he condemns the Hamas attack, it must be remembered that that attack did not occur in the vacuum, and he specifically mentioned Israeli occupation. This came under heavy criticism. He also stated that he is not justifying the attack, and later, again, after the outcry that came and Israeli delegates had canceled meetings with him, he put out a subsequent statement again saying that nothing justifies the Hamas attack and calling on all civilians to be released. In addition, French President Macron, who is visiting Israel, met with Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Herzog and with other political leaders. Macron, though, is also one of the first international leaders to travel to Ramallah in the West Bank, and he met with Mahmoud Abbas, the chairman of the Palestinian Authority. During this meeting, Macron stated that Hamas's attack on October 7th was a devastating blow not only to Israel but also to the Palestinians. Abbas in turn called for an immediate ceasefire and for all sides to release all civilian prisoners. In addition, other political developments, the Austrian Chancellor and Prime Minister of the Czech Republic are due to visit Israel tomorrow, and it was reported today that President Biden spoke to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, bin Salman, and they discussed the regional escalations and developments, and also mentioned possibly returning to normalization talks after things die down. After the report of this telephone conversation, the Wall Street Journal later reported that Saudi Arabia is actually the country that intercepted one of the Houthi missiles that was fired on Friday. So I remind everyone that on Friday, the Houthi rebels in Yemen fired missiles towards Israel. Most of these were intercepted by U.S. warships. However, after this was reported that Saudi Arabia also intercepted some of these. In addition, a political development that occurred today, the largest news agency in the world, the Associated Press, AP, issued today instructions to reporters on how to maintain balance and report the war in a neutral way. So there's been a lot of criticism of different news agencies. Are they calling Hamas a terrorist organization or are they not? Are they reporting on the atrocities of October 7th or only on the devastations in Gaza? AP today issued new instructions to its reporters, among others. They said that Hamas are not to be called terrorists, that they're only to use the word terrorists if they are quoting other people. Also said that they are not to use the term Palestine or State of Palestine, and also that they are not to refer to Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, since Israel considers Jerusalem to include East Jerusalem, and that this is still an area in controversy. So this is part of the ongoing media battles. And relating to the future of the Gaza Strip, the IDF Chief of Staff today again stated that Israel is ready for the invasion as far as he's concerned, and they're just waiting for the political establishment to give the go-ahead. Relating to the future of Gaza, the Palestinian Authority Chairman, Mahmoud Abbas, today stated that in talks with the United States, he agreed to possibly take control of the Gaza Strip in the future. However, that he would only do this if this is part of a larger political agreement. He said that he demands that the Israeli state would make a public statement that the Gaza Strip is part of the West Bank and part of the future Palestinian state, and that otherwise he will not just take over the Gaza Strip just to worry about Israel's security. According to reports, he was answered by the United States that is not going to happen under Netanyahu's coalition. Right now, that remains to be seen regarding the future of the Gaza Strip. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.